Greetings and welcome. Today we're going to go through a video about using Acronis and its backup and recovery capabilities to migrate workloads to US Signal's OpenCloud. Now, in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with Windows workload that is currently running inside of US Signal's vCloud director environment, and we are going to migrate that over to OpenCloud. So now we're on the vCloud Director interface, and we're going to load the console for this device, Win-2019-2. But first and foremost, before we continue, what we're going to do is we're going to download the VirtIO ISO. Now, this is necessary for Windows workloads to be able to operate in the OpenCloud environment. So I clicked on this link from fedorapeople.org, and I'm looking for the latest version, which is 0.1.266. Now I'm going to download the ISO. Now, a cool little thing about Windows is if you have an ISO, you can immediately mount it and be able to see all of its contents as if it was a CD-ROM disk. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to right-click on this device, and I'm going to open it. Now you see I opened everything up, and I've got a bunch of folders and installers that I'm going to be able to use later on. But it's important that we copy this particular subset of data over to the local hard drive. Now the reason for that is going to be that we need to be able to provide these drivers later on in the process. So as I copy over the requisite files, we're going to get every file associated with and copied over to the C drive. Now, again, very important, keep it there, do not delete. So now I'm going to unmount the ISO, eject, and what we're going to do is now we're going to start the process of migration. What we're going to do first is we're going to click down on the Start menu and head to Settings, and we're going to go into the Apps and Features location. We're going to find VMware Tools, and we're going to uninstall that. Now, if you're utilizing a VMX Net 3 NIC, you're going to end up dropping your connection, and it's recommended for this process to use an E1000 NIC to be able to communicate with the backup services. So keep that in mind, especially with the documentation related to this, if you're following along with the documentation and the video in question. So we have to restart so that we can get rid of a couple of services. Now, I just so happen to have another device available because what's going to happen is the mouse is going to disappear. So instead of moving around with the keyboard, I have RDP services enabled on this particular Windows device, and I'm going to try to connect to it utilizing the remote desktop protocol client. Now, once we're up and running here, so there we are, I'm going to switch over to -3, and I'm going to run that client. Connect to the IP address, enter in my administrator password, and now I have mouse and keyboard capabilities so that I can move around the GUI instead of having to tab and hit other keys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up Acronis, because now that we've removed the VMware tools, it's now best to take another backup. So as you can see, I've got backup plans enabled for this particular device, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to initiate a backup of this particular virtual machine. So I click on it inside of the Cyber Protect console and go to Protect and start the backup. Now, if I go back to my machine, you can see that it's queued up and we're in the process of backing up the entire machine. So this is going to get everything, all the files, all the operating system, everything on it. So for the sake of time, we accelerated that, And now, once the backup has occurred, it's time to power off the virtual machine inside of the vCloud Director environment. All right. Now that we no longer need this particular machine, what we're going to do is we're going to connect over to OpenCloud. I've already logged in, and you can see I'm looking at the dashboard. So I'm going to create a new instance in OpenCloud. Now I'm going to create this into the zone, the default zone, and I'm going to select an ISO to boot from instead of an operating system like Windows or Ubuntu. Now, for the compute offering, instead of a compute dense offering, which is what CD means, I'm looking for an S offering. Now, this closely aligns with my 2 virtual CPU and 6 gig of RAM that I had. So now I'm going to add a 100 gig disk to that particular device. And I'm going to switch my network over to this one that's labeled US Signal, because it's got all the information necessary for my CIDR that I have available for my networks. Now I'm going to give it a name. There's Win 2019-2, and I'm going to select a keyboard language of US. Now, I'm going to automatically start the instance when I click on the button, and that's what I'm going to do now. So now the instance is launching, and it should immediately boot into the Acronis ISO. So we're going to select the virtual machine, or the instance, and we're going to launch the VNC console connection to it. And you can see there's the rescue media. So we're going to boot the rescue media. Now this takes a little bit of time, so I've accelerated it to be able to get through it quicker for video purposes. So we found all our block devices and our physical volumes. Now what we're going to necessarily need to do is enter in a credential to register the media. Now, we can do a registration token, which is relatively easy to do inside of the Acronis Backup as a Service application, or you can log in utilizing your username and password. But I'm going to use the registration token. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into an attempt to recover. I'm going to select my data, browse, and you can see in cloud storage, I have my local folder that has all my backups. I'm going to enter in my archive password. And this should give me all my point in time instances. All right. So our latest backup here is the one that I'm clicking on. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the backup contents to disks. You can see this is a 90 gig disk from the vCloud Director environment that is a VMware virtual disk. Once this is done, it asks a couple more questions that we're just going to take the defaults on, and we're going to click on OK and create the recovery task. Now, what's happening here is we're recovering the device. I fast forwarded this because this will take some time so that we can get through and have an associated restore for this particular virtual machine, or I should say instance, inside of OpenCloud. So now this is nearing completion, and once it's completed, we're going to click on Close and select then Apply Universal Restore. Now this is necessary for the Windows portion of the recovery. So remember that folder that we put down? We're going to add that folder, go and click on Local Folders, the C drive, and find the virt.io folder that you should have copied all that information into. Click on OK. This will help when automatically searching for the drivers necessary for the switch. So, you're going to be actually prompted a question inside of this Universal Restore task. You'll see it come up here shortly, and you'll have to answer a couple of questions. So, see the activities need user interaction. Click on Show Details, and just click on Ignore. or ignore all in this particular case. And one more to show up here. And this one is easy enough to just click on ignore because it's changing the device over from a VMDK to an associated OpenCloud file type. So once this completes, we can click on close and head up to actions. And click on exit. This is going to take us back to the first screen. And in this case, click on reboot. Now, while this device is rebooting, you're going to notice that it's going to load the Acronis loader again. But the good news is we can do continue OS booting and automatically boot into the operating system. So I fast forwarded the Windows portion of the configuration here. So it's getting everything ready. And we continue again into the operating system after it reboots that one time. So now you can see we've got a Windows prompt here. Press Control-Alt-Delete to unlock. So that's available over on the left-hand side of the screen by clicking on the A button, and the three buttons at the bottom are Control-Alt-Delete. So Local Administrator is going to pop up here, and I enter in the same password that I had previously. Now, while this is in the process of getting everything set up, because you got a new NIC, it's going to ask you the question of whether or not you want public or private. So you got to enter in your unplanned shutdown event. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that virt.io folder again, because what we need to install is the guest agents. Very similar to how we installed the VMware tools. So we agree to the license and term and click on install. Next, accept the terms in the license agreement. Install everything by default and click on install. This is going to go through and install the rest of the drivers necessary to be able to interact with the device. And with that, you are complete. Everything should be able to operate with this particular device. And you can go forth and do another one. Thank you.